Hello, 7th graders, and welcome to this flipped preview video for the Hobbit lesson 4.05's quiz. By this lesson, you should have finished reading chapters 1 through 11. Do not take the 4.05 quiz until you have read these chapters and reviewed this video. So there's some important information for you to keep in mind as you are working through your lessons and preparing for this comprehension check quiz at the end of lesson 4.05. The first question to consider is, why is Gandalf able to save the dwarves from the trolls in The Hobbit? Well, I want you to consider what happens in chapter 2, which is Rosmutton, where we are introduced to the adventure and problem with the trolls. So if you have the book from K-12, this is located on page 40 through 41. If not, I do have the textual evidence here on the page. So it was just then that Gandalf came back, but no one saw him. What does this mean? This means that he's somewhat invisible in this scene, but if you continue reading, the trolls had just decided to roast the dwarves now and eat them later. That was Bert's idea, one of the trolls, and after a lot of argument, they had all agreed to it. "No good roasting 'em now, I'd take 'em right," said a voice. Who's that voice? Consider that. Bert thought it was Williams, Williams is the other troll. "Don't start the argument all over again, Bill," he said, "or it'll take all night." William said, "Who's arguing? Who thought it was Bert who had spoken?" Do you see what's happening here? Bert and William thought that this voice was one of them, but consider who had just entered the scene. So how does Gandalf save the dwarves from the trolls in this Hobbit? Consider again who the voice is. Another thing to consider is, why can Elrond see the moon letters on Thor's map in the Hobbit? Well, I want you to consider chapter 3, A Short Rest, and this is from page 53. Elrond The context is right before this. The dwarves had just asked, "What are moon letters?" And he continues to explain what they are. And then as you read on, pause this video to see why he's able to read the moon letters on Thorin's map. As we continue on, I want you to consider, why is Bilbo able to escape Gollum in The Hobbit? Now, Gollum and Bilbo are interacting in chapter 4, titled Riddles in the Dark. So if you go back to pages 80 through 90, I want you to consider what Bilbo steals from Gollum. What power does this item or thing or whatever it may be give Bilbo? Then, if you can consider this and read towards the end of this chapter, you will know how he can escape Gollum. Other things to consider for this 4.05 quiz. In chapter 8, I want you to consider the question, which theme is developed in The Hobbit when Bilbo uses cunning to rescue the dwarves from the spiders? This means that heroes can come in all shapes and sizes. While Bilbo is a hobbit and he is rather small, he is still heroic, and he is proving that time and time again on this journey. Another theme to consider is, which theme is developed in The Hobbit when Bilbo tricks the spiders into chasing rocks so he can save the dwarves? Well, the challenge, this reveals the theme that challenges often reveal one's inner strength and resolve. Bilbo overcomes this challenge through inner confidence, which leads to the resolve and then being able to escape the spiders. And the last theme to consider for the 4.05 quiz is, which theme is developed in The Hobbit when Bilbo spares Gollum's life? Now, this happens at the very end of chapter 4. Bilbo turns around and, while still invisible, takes one last look at Gollum. He has an urge to kill or get rid of this person, Gollum, this creature, but he decides to take one last look at Gollum. And he is inside filled with pity, horror, emotion. So in this moment, he decides to spare his life. As you continue on, I want you to continue to consider how the setting can influence and develop the plot, but also how it can influence characters. So this is a picture of Bilbo's house called the Schmiel, or the Hobbit hole. And Bilbo's Hobbit hole is explained at the beginning of the novel as comfortable and certain. Now, this setting can also showcase who Bilbo is. He's a very comfortable, secure, and not very adventurous person. Also, in chapter 1, we're going way back, I want you to consider Bilbo and curiosity. When Gandalf introduces Bilbo to the possibility of this adventure in the beginning of the novel, Bilbo, he is sparked with curiosity, as he has not been on an adventure before. While he does have other emotions regarding this invitation that Gandalf gives him, like anxiety, fear, and tension, he is most undertaken by curiosity, which leads him to go on the adventure. I also want you to think of the Took family, and Gandalf brings up the Took family, and I apologize for the spelling error here in chapter, but he brings up the Took family in chapter 1. The Took family was a witty and peculiar family, and they had certain habits and skills. When Bilbo engages in the riddles with Gollum, it proves his ancestry with the Took family, which Gandalf mentioned in chapter 1. And after you've watched this video, I hope you'll feel a little bit more prepared covering the topics and comprehension check for your 4.05 quiz for English 7A. I hope you're enjoying this adventure book. Let's keep reading on.